We have only started.
Part of what's so extraordinary about this moment is that people are starting to get the sense that the common good is really something we can plausibly work for.
You know, it's not just about Barack Obama, it is about the people.
Something happened that really did shift the political landscape.
There's going to be change for all people.
He's done so much to mobilize people who are glued to their computer screens. Now's not the time to diss, to hate on the folks that are newly coming up.
We have to be wise enough to reconsider the tactics that we use as we go forward.
I mean, it's great he's there, but he's just one person. It is still this large institution, and he's going to need the country behind him to make the changes.
We're in a unique and dangerous time, and I don't think it's a time for cynicism. I don't think it's a time for complacency, because we can't afford it.
We can really decide together what we want, because if we don't work together, we won't go far. The people united never will be defeated.
I think this is the time where it's time to introduce the current chair of the Harry Bridges Center for Labor Studies to the History Department at the University of Washington, Dr. Jim Gregory. Jim?
So this is a special day, one of a number of special anniversaries in a, guess what, special year. 2009 is now officially, as of yesterday, it has officially become Washington's Labor Heritage Year. Yesterday, Governor Gregoire issued this proclamation declaring 2009 Washington Labor Heritage Year. The Harry Bridges Center and the King County Labor Council and the Pacific Northwest Labor History Association wrote the resolution. Steve Conway and our friends in the legislature took it to her and she said yes. Hopefully she'll say yes to a few other things. But this one's important. Let me just read it. Whereas the state of Washington has a unique labor history that has made it a leader among states in securing workplace rights, establishing civil liberties, equal rights, and the dignity of all workers, and in recognizing the importance of labor unions. And whereas organized labor has been vital to the progress of American democracy, helping to secure not only higher standards of living, but also higher standards of citizenship, giving workers the ability to counter the power of money with the power of many, both in the workplace and in the halls of government. And whereas many of the episodes that frame our state's sense of historical identity involve worker struggles and labor issues, and whereas 2009 presents the opportunity to acknowledge several important anniversaries: the Spokane free speech fight of 1909, 100th anniversary. The Seattle General Strike and Centralia Massacre of 1919, 90th anniversary. The great Longshore strike of 1934, 75th anniversary. And the 10th anniversary of the WTO Battle of Seattle. Now, therefore, I, Christine O. Gregoire, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby honor the heritage of the labor movement in our state. And I encourage all citizens to involve themselves in educational activities that foster understanding of the history of working people and the role of labor organizations in Washington state. Hear, hear. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, labor movement. This state has so much it owes to the men and women who have fought for workplace rights over the centuries, the century plus, over the decades and right up to the present. So let me tell you a little story. And Andrew, I think if the lights could come down just a bit. Little bit. Okay. At 10 a.m., the morning of February 6th, which fell on a Thursday that year, a sharp whistle sounded in downtown Seattle. It was the signal to stop work. On job sites throughout the city, men and women put aside their work, grabbed their coats and hats, and headed for the street. More than 100 unions had voted to stop work at that hour, and more than 60,000 workers responded. Among them were Teamsters and streetcar men, building trades workers, pressmen, longshore workers. The waitress union joined the strike, shutting down all of the city's restaurants. Hotel maids and lady barbers also joined. It was the greatest display of working class unity in this city's history, and the first declared general strike in American history. It electrified the nation and the world. Journalists had flooded into the city, and now the telegraph lines hummed with the news that the strike was actually underway. This was a solidarity strike. The unions of the Central Labor Council, meeting in the original Labor Temple over on Union Street near 6th, had agreed to strike in support of shipyard unions that had been on strike already for 2 weeks. They were fighting for a wage increase that the federal government had promised during the war and then reneged on when the war ended. But the feds and the metal trades unions had shut down the shipyards, and now the unions of the city joined together to shut down the entire city. The stakes were high. This is just months after the end of World War I, and a little more than a year after the Russian Revolution. Some of the strikers are wobblies and revolutionary socialists, hoping that this is the start of a revolutionary sequence. Most of the strikers have different goals. They have watched during the war as profiteers get richer and richer while wages are mostly frozen. They think it's labor's turn, not just to raise wages, but to raise dignity and authority. They're also worried that the shipyard strike is a harbinger of an open shop movement, a plan to derail and stop the progress of organized labor. The strike is impressive at first and surprising. Authorities had been expecting violence. The mayor asks for federal troops, and 1,500 soldiers from Fort Lewis are dispatched to the city, taking up positions in the National Guard armories. Mayor Ole Hansen had worried about violence, and so he deputized more than 2,000 citizens, conservatives, as special deputies who are armed and ready to back up the police department in case of violence. Machine gun emplacements are seen on the streets of Seattle. But the Central Labor Council is on top of things. There's no violence at all. Indeed, what everyone notices is how quiet the city is. Few crowds gather. The General Strike Committee has organized 300 war veterans into a force called the Labor Guardians, And they moved through the streets urging people to disperse, not to do anything to provoke the police. Meanwhile, the labor movement is providing essential services. Food kitchens are operating in many of the labor halls, feeding 20 to 30,000 citizens, strikers during the day. Teamsters are delivering supplies to hospitals, delivering milk to places where children, families with children can get it. But the strike is also failing. By day 2, certainly by day 3, it's clear that the hope that this gesture of power and solidarity will help the shipyard workers is not to be. The feds dig in their heels, and local authorities, backed up by the major newspapers, are becoming more and more hysterical. The expression of workers' solidarity has scared many people, and conservatives now have the upper hand. On Saturday, several unions tell their members to go back to work. Others soon follow. The Central Labor Council officially calls off the strike on Monday, February 11th. It has lasted 6 days. The strike failed, but it did not fail. It served as a model for other big strikes that year, huge strikes in the steel and coal industries, and another general strike in Winnipeg. It served as a model for the big strikes of the 1930s, including the general strike of 1934 in San Francisco and another in Minneapolis. It was a model because it demonstrated 2 things: that workers would indeed come together in impressive displays of solidarity, and secondly, that they could do so peacefully. That big strikes could be powerful without turning into massively violent confrontations. General strikes have come to be rare in the United States, and we should ask ourselves why. They're not rare everywhere. This is last week. This is Paris. Last week, the Union Federations of France declared a general strike, a one-day general strike, 2.5 million people in the streets, transit, work disrupted and stopped. This is one of my favorite little slides. This is the airport in Paris. Planes not going anywhere, trains not going anywhere, subway not going anywhere, people not going anywhere except into the streets, where they were protesting the government's inaction in the face of this great recession that we are in. Inaction on the one hand, and plans to cut jobs, cut services, cut the social safety net, cut education. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Does that sound familiar? And what do? Well, the plans to cut social services and to throw tens of thousands of public employees out of work are being hatched and worked through in our state. Well, we could talk about that.
Oh, my sisters, oh, my brothers, we've been stealing for these others. Don't you think it's time we shared among ourselves? We don't want them, we don't want them, we don't need them, we don't need them, these parasites who live off someone else. Better turn it around, take another look, forget what they made you read in the history book. Brick by brick, nail by nail, we built their mansions and we built their jails.
Life could be a dream if I could take you up in paradise up above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again. Shaboom and hope.
fakkaatiin fulatan argataniini muka akkababii inni jiru bisaan jiranii beekamuu danda'anii jira. Odaafa ulaagaafa muka akkasii ka yoonni akkababii sunitti argamu bisaanii argamu akkasii jira. Beetiin ta'uu diddee loonumaadha jiruun isaa. Qabeenyi isaa loonumaadha wanni inni ittiin jiraatu, wanni gurguratu, wanni qalatu, wanni ittiin jiraatu jiruun isaa loon re'ee gaala. Wanni biraan jiru. Wanni biraan jiru. Gaalummaan daawwatee reefu warri gaala loon baay'ee dhabe jechuudha. Loon baay'ee dhubate jechuudha. Yoo boni jajjabaate. Loon amma guddina namni ajjibaachu maayyoo hin marri hin jiru yoo bokkeenni faan hin dhufin loon hagan waan qallabi jiraate hin dandeettiin qallabdu akka malee jajjaba kee jiraate uf soda guddoo kee jiraate soda maqarrishaa gubbaachu du'a mala jaffara amma gari dheetti hin qabdu callistee taa'u malee amma du'a amma tokko tokkoon amma gar cufaayyuu amma du'uu jammara.
አገሩ ያው የሶማሊያ ሀገር ቆላ ከ186ቱ አርብቶ አደር ነው። አገሩ ደግሞ ቆላ ነው። ድርቅ ይበዛል፣ ዝናብ ማነስ ይበዛል። ዝናብ ወዳለበት ሳር ወዳለበት ውሃ ወዳለበት የሚዞር ነው። አሁን ባለንበት አሁን ራሱ አለ እየጨመረ እየመጣ ነው። አንዳንድ ቦታዎች ውሃ እየጠፉ ነው። አሁንም ችግር አለ። እሱ የሚገልጸው ድሮ ምንጫቸው የማይደርቁ ኤላዎች ድሮ ወንዝ ውሃ ደርቆ መቆፈር የማያስፈልግ ዝም ብሎ ውሃ የሚሄደው አሁን ውሃው እያለቀ እንደ ዳዋ አይነት ይቆፈራል። በቃ ይሄ ድሮ አልነበረም እንደ አይነቱ።
Plus la roba taanu bona gargaare.
Jahaja baatti tulinge. Obi origine sun bujolin afamteri.
Bujalam chala robere lafta. Bujalam chala.
Ori lafsani laftan befe wal bul bade sanran wada.
For the tribe conflicts, for instance, Boran and Guji, it's resource-based conflict due to water. They are living in the remote area. They have a lot of cattle. If conflict arises or if conflict happen between two clans like Boran and Guji, those Gujis or those Boranas who live in Guji side will be displaced.
Yangu Riva Bora. Salasini mbili. Kabila yangu Oromo. Arsi. Hiyo Borana. Mtoto yangu 7. Shida gani? Zamani iko bese chapa mingi, saa hakuna na watu mingi na kufa Guji. Sasa na biga na Guji. Ndio Borana na kufa. Borana mingi na kufa. Iko shida maji. Watu Guji Borana watu 26 mimi najua naona bana. Pastola kilashi. Najua pistola mingi.
አዎ ያው አገራችን በዚህ በደርጉ ጊዜ ወይም በትግሉ ላይ የነበረው የዚህ ሁኔታ ወይም ከብቴን ከአንበሳ ከጅብ ሊጠብቅ በሚል ሁኔታ አለ መሳሪያ በህዝብ እጅ አለ። ይሄ ደግሞ መጣላት ሲመጣ ጉዳት ያመጣል።
With St. Patrick's Day coming up, we thought we'd do something a bit more significant than let's go drink green beer. So here's a little story from American history. Dave Rovix will tell you all about it.
My name is John Riley. I'll have your ear only a while. I left my dear home in Ireland. It was death, starvation, or exile. When I got to America, it was my duty to go, enter the army and slog across Texas to join in the war against Mexico. And it was there in the pueblos and hillsides that I saw the mistake I had made. Part of a conquering army with the morals of a bayonet blade. And there amidst all these poor dying Catholics, screaming children, the burning stench of it all, myself and 200 Irishmen decided to rise to the call. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We marched neath the green flag of St. Patrick, emblazoned with Erin Golbra, bright with the harp and the shamrock, and Libertad Pal Republica. Just 50 years after Wolf Tone, 5,000 miles away, the Yanks called us a legion of strangers, and they can talk as they may, but from Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. What'd we do? We formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We fought them in Matamoros, where their volunteers were raping the nuns. In Monterrey and Cerro Gordo, we fought on as Ireland's sons. We were the red-headed fighters for freedom amidst these brown-skinned women and men. Side by side we fought against tyranny, and I dare say we'd do it again. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. In 5 major battles, Churubusco was the last. Overwhelmed by the cannons from Boston, we fell after each mortar blast. Most of us died on that hillside at the service of the Mexican state. So far from our occupied homeland, we were heroes and victims of fate. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. From Dublin City to San Diego, we witnessed freedom denied. So we formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side. We formed the St. Patrick Battalion and we fought on the Mexican side.
Excuse me.
Hey, watch it.
Hey, can somebody turn some lights on in here?
If you need light to access this building, you can have your doctor certify your disability, then ask for special accommodation.
Equal access is a right, not a privilege.
I'm John Schorsch.
I'm Sarah Green.
I'm Deborah Peterson.
And I'm Donna Lawrence.
Ow! Oof!